BMW 2009 R1200GS. Nice bike to ride around, kind of cool bike. It's got a good stance, good presence. It's really kind of a manly man sort of motorcycle, and it looks the part for sure. Off-road, fire roads, you know, maybe, probably, you could do it for sure. It's mostly a road bike though, to be honest with you. Why these aren't that great for the ADV market? A lot of people are under the misconception due to the heavy marketing that these things are some kind of be-all end-all motorcycle, splash out your money and go traveling around the world. However, there's a number of things to consider with a bike like this. As far as riding it is concerned, it's nice, it's okay. It's not quite as fast as you think a 1200 ought to be, or I don't think it is. It's certainly got some get up and go, no doubt about it. But for a 1200, they're a little bit of a dog, to be honest. Little lanky, little weird handling. I mean, they're okay, they're acceptable. I mean, it's certainly not unacceptable, the handling, but still, it's like, I don't know, they always seem a little lanky, little bit of a dog, to be honest. And then heavy, top heavy. They sit so tall, just a little uneven surface or a little bit of a hill, man, you pretty much got to get off it and roll it back. I mean, unless you're 8 feet tall, which could be the case, I don't know, but I'm almost 6 foot, and I find it awfully difficult to back up in uneven surfaces, like in this grassy area. Backing up, you pretty much got to get off it. So that's something that is often overlooked, is that if you got a big heavy motorcycle, you know, it gets stale pretty quick wrestling with a big bike. Now the BMWs are generally nice bikes, the road going ones, the K1200, K1600, really nice bikes. The road manners are unparalleled, second to none. Honestly, they're very well refined motorcycles, so no fault with the road bikes there. In terms of road manners, you buy them brand new, keep them for 3 years, and then trade them in. And that's kind of where the trouble starts. Like, a lot of people keep these. They're not like the old R80s and the old R bikes where, you know, you had a Boxer twin, you had a couple Bing carburetors, and they were pretty reliable. People would go around the world, 10 years at a time, and have really not that many problems with them. They were very basic, very simple, and that's what lent themselves to being good bikes for going around the world. RTW, as the acronym goes on the ADV forums. But anyways, these new motorcycles, they're really nice when they're new. They don't age very well. They're kind of plagued with some serious problems over the years. Differentials didn't have enough oil in them. They had this crazy little bearing in the differentials. They would fry, overheat, and difficult to fix, expensive, hard to find parts for. They had a shaft on some of these older ones with the clutch, and the shaft would strip out. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which models, but it was an issue. These have a dry clutch, by the way, for those who don't know. There's a dry clutch under here. When the main seal goes, leaks onto the clutch, starts slipping. You need to pretty much rip apart the whole motorcycle to get the clutch out. So it is a big deal. You should be mindful of what kind of oil that you use in the transmission. These transmissions are very susceptible to certain types of synthetic oils, so be aware of that in terms of seal leakage, this sort of thing. And you don't want to be getting oil on that dry clutch. So a couple problems there: the splines, dry clutch. So too, if you're in the sand and you're feathering the clutch, they don't take well to constant slipping. They heat up pretty quick, and they burn out pretty quick as well. So be aware of that. It's quite a big bike. It's tall, and I'm about 6 foot. When I'm standing beside this thing, it's almost up to my shoulder, the handlebars. Got it running good. There we go. Yeah, it runs good. It took a little while to get the fuel pump sorted out, but we got it sorted out and it's pretty good. If you're going through Central America, South America, there's limited places that have the facilities and resources to
to repair these things properly. And then you're usually waiting on parts, say from Los Angeles or somewhere, some BMW dealership in the across the state's border, relying on couriers, and then bribing officials to get it into the country if you're in Honduras, Belize, somewhere like that. And I've met tons of people just from experience stranded in hotels and hostels around the world, and then these things aren't cheap. They're like 30 grand plus, because you buy the base model for approaching 30, and then you buy all the tour tech stuff and kit it out in the spacesuit and the whole 9 yards, and pretty soon it's not hard to get up to about $50,000. And then if you're stranded somewhere, a lot of people 50 grand's a lot of money, so you're not just gonna ditch it and give it to a local. Some people are airlifting these things out, so that gets pretty spendy. I met lots and lots of people stranded on these things. The spokes rip out, differentials crap the bed, the shaft of the transmission strips out. These things are fuel injected, bristling with electronics, so they're very finicky on the fuel. Actually, you start pouring a lot of dirty fuel into these things, and they're not robust like an old tractor or something. Contrary to what a lot of people would like to promote, the idea that these are like old tractors and they're tough military grade motorcycles. Well, they're not at all. Actually, they're more of a road going motorcycle that's best suited to the streets of North America, Europe, where the roads are nice, Spain. These things are lovely in Spain. Up in the Pyrenees Mountains are fabulous. Not so much in Kazakhstan, not so much in Uzbekistan. Rough country, going off-road, seeing a lot of off-road time with these things. They don't fare well, especially if you start dropping. Like I said, they're very top-heavy. You load this thing up, and what is already a heavy bike becomes almost unmanageable, especially on loose surfaces where you get a little mud, this sort of thing on the road, or a passenger on the back and the bags and everything. So that's something to consider. I'll offer some solutions. Maybe consider taking a Suzuki DR650 with a carburetor. Old school bike, I think they still sell them brand new, 2024 models. They come with carburetor, air-cooled engine. They're not, they don't have the road manners that this thing does for sure, but very basic and reliable, pinnacle Japanese engineering. Excellent motorcycles. DR650, there's also the KLR, Kawasaki 650. I mean, these are, tried, tested and true motorcycles. Many have went down to South America without any issues whatsoever. And, they still can have problems for sure. And, if you need parts, you're not going to, generally find them readily for a KLR. But the difference between the KLR 650 and this thing is that the KLR, generally, as long as you take care of it and ride it within the parameters it was designed for, keep the oil changed, and they don't really break down, actually, and that, again, it has a carburetor on it. So when you put that dirty fuel in your motorcycle, and you will, going around the world, you'll buy fuel out of pop bottles here and there down dirt roads. You can take the carburetor off and clean it. It's a massive difference. This thing has sensors. It has a map sensor. It has, altitude sensor, the big fat ECU, 32-bit ECU on there, controlling the fuel injection, 2 fuel injectors. And they get clogged up. It's got a fuel pump in the tank, electric fuel pump that gets clogged up. And there's a filter in the tank that nobody ever replaces. This one had a fuel pump issue. It came in, and there's a controller on top of the fuel pump, which sits on top of the tank, which is fortunately rather easy to get at. $1,100 Canadian item, by the way, for the whole pump. But you don't have to buy the whole pump. You can buy just the the actual pump is just the size of your pinky in there, and it can be replaced with aftermarket stuff, but you got to take the pump out, take the whole pump, not the pump, but you got to take the housing out and then take the whole housing apart to get the pump out to replace it. But the actual pump itself is only, it's like it's a pretty relatively cheap part. So, probably $60, something like that. You should carry a spare if you're traveling around, so at least you got a part on hand to fix the fuel pump.
So, I don't know, just some thoughts on the R1200. It's not an entirely bad bike or anything. It's just for the market that it was directed at, the ADV market. I don't think it quite lives up to its name very well in terms of being a practical motorcycle for doing the RTW thing with. So yeah, anyways, that's my 2 cents on it. Nice bike. I don't mind going for a coffee on it at all, test driving it and doing a little video here, but you know, I don't think I would buy one. I've been offered a couple times very good deals on these things and turned them down just because of that. I've ridden them, didn't really think they were that they were cracked up to be, and you know, so you know, they're not a bad bike, they're just not quite as advertised, I suppose.
These are lovely bikes, don't get me wrong. I really like riding them. KTM, same way, like riding them when they're new. But you know, you don't keep them. You just trade them in 3 years. It's like an Audi or a Mercedes-Benz. Now you don't keep them. You know, 3 years to get a Mercedes-Benz, and 3 years the dash is just lighting up like a Christmas tree. And warranty is so important. You know, if you buy one of these and you're keeping it, even in North America, buy the full warranty if you can. If you're buying one of these brand new, full warranty. Don't cheap out, because you know, these things crap out, and boy, it gets pretty spendy quick. I mean, just labor rate alone at the shops, I mean, they're between 160 and 220 bucks an hour. So man, you start bringing your bike to a dealership these days, and it better be worth something for sure. So anyways, that's my little thoughts, opinions on the R1200GS. It does have a lot of presence, a lot of styling. They are a cool bike, no doubt about it. So, you know, it handles well. German engineering, it's not Chinese junk, that's for sure. It's a good bike. And these are still, as far as I know, my understanding is they're still made in Germany. Whereas the little bikes, the F Series 650, 850, 650 and 800, I believe they're a motor made in China or Taiwan. I don't know. But these big bikes are still made in Germany. So round the world bikes, are they good bikes? They're very top heavy motorcycles. So here's one of the things, when you load, like they're top heavy when they're unloaded. So once you load this thing up and you get on a loose surface, a slippery surface, mud, gravel, it gets hairy pretty quick and pretty top heavy. You're a long way from the ground. There's a long way down, especially if you're standing up on the pegs doing a striking a pose for Instagram or whatever. You know, breaking legs is pretty easy to do on these bikes. They're a heavy bike, they're top heavy, and they tend to tip over fairly readily. I can't recall the number of people stranded around the world that I've met in hostels, holed up in hotels and whatnot, and waiting on parts because they've either crashed it and nobody can fix it, or you know, they need parts. Like, this thing is bristling with electronics. It's a pretty complicated motorcycle. BMW after 04 became kind of proprietary, to sum it up. Dealer only service. You can buy a 911 code reader, as it's called, and turn off the oil light and this sort of thing with newer BMWs, but you know, it's pretty limited what you can do with these bikes, so be aware of that. And if you're out in a place, you know, in Belize or somewhere, I mean, the amount of support you have for a bike like this is pretty limited. So there's that to consider. These bikes came to prominence mainly during the Charlie Boorman, Ewan McGregor years. They were doing the long way around the movie, and it spawned a whole genre of these adventure bike things, and then now Moto Guzzi jumped on it, Ducati, and you know, all the manufacturers to kind of capture that market, which is kind of still hot at the moment for sure. But long way around, that movie certainly spawned a whole generation of people riding these things. They're cool bikes, I like them, you know, but be aware the marketing doesn't really represent the actual product that well. They're a little flaky, they're a little fragile. I mean, you dump these things, they got you can buy Touratech crash bars and all that jazz for it, but you know, like, it has a weird front end, it has a cantilever front end. These have tubeless tires, 19-inch front and a 17 rear, I believe 150/17, and this is a 110/80/19. Dual disc, dual piston calipers, dual disc rotors on the front, of course, single on the back, typical shaft drive, kind of a crazy setup. A lot of these models, they didn't put enough oil in the differential, so they flake out fairly quickly. A lot of Tour Tech catalogs out there and this sort of thing. It has a strange front end like most BMWs do. It has a normal telescoping forks, which is cool, and it has this cantilever right here on the bottom, and the whole thing pivots on this thing, and then up at the top it's held on a token gesture, couple nuts on the top, triple tree underneath these things. So kind of a weird front end, rubber mounted bars, which is nice because it is a boxer twin and it does vibrate, so that's nice to have. Something to consider. You're buying one of these for going around the world, you know, shopping around for a motorcycle. Think about it, DR650, KLR650. I have no skin in the game, I'm just telling you from experience, lots of experience, and traveling around the world too, that, you know, who had a successful trip and who didn't. And it really sucks, you know, you put all this prep into going on a big trip like that around the world, or down from Prudhoe Bay to Ushuaia to Tierra del Fuego, then, you know, it's just great to have a bike that you don't have to worry about, because there's so many other things to worry about besides renting on a motorcycle. You know, there's border crossings, robberies, where you're going to stay, weather, you know, there's just so many other things to concern yourself with besides, you know, is my BMW going to crap out somewhere in the Atacama Desert in Chile? So yeah, anyways, that's my 2 cents. R1200, thought I'd do a quick video on it. I got the fuel pump working, I'm gonna take for a rip, put some gas in this thing, fresh gas, and spend a half hour on it. BMW R1200GS. I still don't know what year this thing is. It almost doesn't matter. They're all nice bikes. They are. You know, they're the later ones. The later ones have water cooling, of course, and a wet type clutch, and they have active suspension, of course, the new ones with electronics in the suspension. So there's something else to crap out on you. And there was a problem with those too, the electronic suspension. You have little solenoids in there, so when you on the fly, when you switch it, it's just solenoids that control the flow of oil within the shock. That's all it is. It's like, it's kind of cool, it's techy, but it's not, you know, it's not magic for sure. So solenoids, switch, ECU, controls all the parameters of the suspension, and then it adjusts to, and then it senses, you know, where the oil flows at, and the wheel, and the speed of the wheel, and, you know, it gets quite complicated. So me personally, I'd rather take an old carbureted bike down Mexico way and just be done with it and have a good trip. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll do another video when something interesting comes up. Thanks. Have a good day, night, morning, wherever you're in the world, and take care out there. Ride safe. Watch around you, man, because, you know, it's pretty dodgy these days on the motorcycle for sure. Take care. Bye for now.